kill the brain and you kill the ghoul.
Boils and Ghouls to the Cold Dead Heart Horror Show, where we talk about horror news, recap and review things we've watched, and today's episode is special because we're going to be talking about the movie Infested. All right, Ken, let's get started. So, what horror news do you have for us?
Well, there's a new Evil Dead just
Yay!
announced. So just right, just a couple of months after the news that Sebastian Vennick was chosen to direct the new Evil Dead film, comes exciting news that another Evil Dead movie is in the works. This time from the Last Stop in Yuma director Francis Gulip. I don't know
Oh,
if I pronounced that
Gillette?
right, but Last Stop in Yuma is the new Barbara Crampton movie
Mm-hmm.
that she's been promoting. So that's really cool. So not just one, but two Evil Dead movies happening. So I love that. I love that
Yeah.
Bruce and Sam Raimi are just kind of like, people want it, let's give it to them. They're picking these really cool, semi like obscure indie directors.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It speaks volumes for the franchise. So I do like that. A prequel to the classic 1968 horror film Rosemary's Baby will debut on Paramount Plus this fall. So, set in 1965 New York City, the film tells a story prior to the legendary horror classic Rosemary's Baby, exploring what happened in the apartment before Rosemary moved in. And I think I said Rosemary 3 or 4 times there.
Mm-hmm.
So Rosemary's Baby, that's 5 times. Like such like that late 60s classic,
Mm-hmm.
psychological horror. I love after so much time that they're going to go back and do a prequel of that. I just hope that they nailed the time period, right?
Right.
So I think that's super cool.
I think that could go
Um,
either way, honestly, because
for sure.
if they nail it, it could be something super
Hmm.
cool like what they did with the first Omen. And it could
I
also
was thinking the first Omen. Yeah, yeah.
it could also go completely off the rails. We'll see.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And in super exciting news,
Hmm.
the legendary 1994 Alex Proyas, Brandon Lee Crow film is coming back to theaters for a limited 30th anniversary showing at the end of the month, courtesy of Fangoria Entertainment. So it looks like I'll be seeing The Crow in theaters this year after all.
Woohoo!
This one is expected to sell out really fast. So keep an eye on ticket sales in your area if you're interested. There's a massive fan base to the 94
Mhm.
Crow. Consider myself among the higher echelon of Crow fanatics.
Me too.
It's no secret that I think this new one looks like a bit of a disgrace to the franchise, and I'm not. It's not something I'm gonna see in the theater, but The Crow's a movie I watch at least once a year, if not 2 or 3 times. And I can't even remember how many times I saw it as a teenager in the theater. And what's really special about this is my goddaughter is reading the Crow graphic novel, the James O'Barr
Oh,
novel,
how
right
cool.
now, like literally right now. So I'm really excited to take her to see it in the theater, so
Hmm.
she gets that experience. And she's never seen the movie, so it's going to be a big deal.
Nice.
But that's what I got for movies. What about you, G?
So I have some news about what's coming to Shudder this month, and as you all know, I'm a big fan of Shudder Entertainment, and I love that it's a horror streaming service, and they have come out with some really interesting things. So Night Watch is a really awesome horror movie from the 90s. It starred a very young Ewan McGregor, and
Right.
um, the same director, Borndal, that released the first Night Watch, has made a sequel, Night Watch Demons Are Forever. And in this sequel, Martin's daughter, Emma, takes up the Night Watch job and, you know, tries to uncover the mystery and figure out, I guess, what happened. But it'll be on Shudder May 17th. And um, I believe they're also going to
This is
have
such cool
the
news.
Yeah, they're also gonna have the first Night Watch on there. So if you want to like watch Night
Oh,
Watch and then
perfect.
watch the second one, which is exactly what
How
I'm going to
perfect
be
is
doing.
that?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. That's totally what
Hell
I'm doing.
yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
And it's such an underrated horror movie too, Night Watch. Like a lot of people like because like I feel like the early 90s was like a transition for horror.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like you had that classic what we would consider like 80s slasher, almost
Mhm.
super villain-esque horror. And then the 90s there was kind of this like branch off, and I like to think that it's like people that were of a certain age that grew up on kind of 70s, 80s horror and
Mhm.
became horror creators, directors, writers, whatever. And it was like that next generation of horror,
Mhm.
like with Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And like I do feel a separation, right? Like I don't
Mhm.
have the same connection to like things like Jeepers Creepers or Scream or
Yeah.
like that branch.
Yeah.
I don't have the connection that I do to 80s horror. You know what
Uh-huh.
I mean? So like I
I don't
feel
know.
that, and I feel like Night Watch kind of fit right in that groove, but
Mhm.
kind of somehow missed the fan base because not a lot of people talk about it. But it was like one of those really good '90s horror movies.
I almost feel like Scream overshadows 90s horror because I mean there's some
Sure.
fantastic 90s horror. There's like Candyman, Event Horizon, which is one of my all-time favorite
Right?
horror
Oh
movies.
yeah,
And so there's these
absolutely.
amazing, huge movies, but then it's kind of like if you're going to talk 90s horror, you talk Scream. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
begins and ends with Scream. Yeah.
yeah. But there really
Mm,
were some great ones, and I agree with you. Night Watch is just this like hidden gem where there was a good
right.
director, a really good cast. Um,
Yeah.
I
Good
think,
story.
yeah, Nick Nolte's in it, so
Yeah.
it's good. Um,
That's
then
cool.
the
And how cool is it that Shudder's bringing like uh so many like of these
mhm.
really cool movies now to streaming, right? Because like
Right.
for a while, and it's funny, like every day I'm getting more and more supportive of Shudder. And there was a long time where it was like I had Shudder for Last Drive-In and Creep Show, and
Hmm.
other than that it was like that's what I was paying for, you know what I mean? Like horror movies, you could get more horror movies on Tubi for free,
Right. Yeah.
but you have to pay extra for Shudder, right? But it's like it's becoming more and more worth the price tag every day now.
It is. And honestly,
Yeah,
this kind of bridges me into another thing. They have come out with some amazing originals like Mad God, which if you're a fan of
right?
that stop motion claymation style,
Huge fan. Yeah,
it's so worth it.
I love stop motion,
I do
especially
too.
in horror. Like I feel like people just look at it as like animation and skip it, but like there are some, and Mad God I think is
Hmm.
almost the crowning jewel of an
Hmm.
example for like how
Right?
cool stop motion horror can be.
It was so demented and weird. I loved it.
Yeah,
I mean, and
yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
that brings me to the movie that's coming at the end of May, May 31st. So the title of the movie is Stop Motion, and the trailer for it gave me goosebumps.
I
Um,
gotta check this out.
yeah,
When we were
it
talking about this in pre-production, I'm like trying to name like are you talking about this movie? You talking about this movie? And like, no, it's called Stop Motion, dummy. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, it sounds really cool.
Mhm.
Sorry, I jumped in there. Go ahead and explain it.
Oh, so I mean, it doesn't reveal a whole lot in the trailer, which I really appreciate. It just the scenes of the stop motion and the way it kind of made her sound and look kind of crazy, like she's losing her mind a little bit. And then it would bring in
Right.
a stop motion bit for a few seconds and then like she'd be crazy again. So it was giving me like in the mouth of madness vibes.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah,
Right on.
like
So this is like a mix of live action and stop motion.
yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, I didn't catch that when we were
Hmm.
talking about it in pre-show. That sounds really, really
Hmm.
cool.
So the premise is that this woman is a stop motion director animator and
Oh,
she's losing her mind, but it looks like in the trailer that either she's hallucinating that the stop motion stuff is coming to life or maybe it's
right.
actually coming to life. Who
Either way,
knows?
that sounds dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm down. I'm
Yeah.
down for the ride.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
Uh,
Sold.
yeah, yeah. Some of
Yeah.
the stills are really
Before we
cool
jump
too.
off of stop motion,
Hmm.
Primals from Full Moon, which has been in production for years, is coming out on their streaming service, or is already out. And I meant to mention it like a couple of shows ago, but that looks bonkers crazy. It's Primals by Full Moon Entertainment.
Hmm.
Looks cool. Just it's not too often we talk about stop motion, so I figured I'd squeeze that one in there.
It's very cool. Thank you. So do you have anything for games?
Um, I've got one here.
Okay.
I'm going to stray a little bit from our typical game talk because this is a board game,
Mm.
and not just any board game. Halloween, the board game. So here's the pitch for it.
Okay.
It was the night he came home, and one player must take on the role of Michael Myers. The others will control Laurie and her friends as they scramble to find weapons, the kids, and a way to escape. Their task will
Nice.
be made even more difficult by Myers because he can only be seen when you're looking right at him. So I don't know how
Mm.
that'll play out, but it sounds pretty interesting, and a Halloween board game sounds like a lot of fun.
Hmm.
It's made by Trick or Treat Studios and should be out for pre-order soon. But that's pretty much all I have for games.
That is
What about
awesome.
you, G?
Well, I've got
Right?
stuff in the video game genre, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one that's coming out, Autopsy Simulator to PC.
Mm.
Um, I'm probably gonna check it out. It's not something I'm super duper excited about, but it seems like it could be cool. The game that I'm really stoked about is coming out on the 21st, and it's Senua's Saga Hellblade 2.
Mm.
I know I've mentioned it in other podcast episodes, but I am like on the edge of my seat. It's pre-installed on my Xbox. I am raring to go with
Nice.
it. Like, I will be playing it on the 21st. So,
Sweet. What's this
mhm.
one about?
So it's Senua. Senua is like a Viking type character, and
Oh,
she's
cool.
um I don't want to give too many spoilers if people haven't played it, but
Oh, because this
uh
is a part two, right?
because this is the second one, but it's got heavy
Gotcha.
influences. It's North mythology. It's definitely firmly in the horror genre, and
Right.
she is battling with these like ancient Norse forces, but also her own
Cool.
mental stability because she hears
Okay.
voices all the time. And that's one of the things that
Right
the
on.
first game did so well is it advised you to play with the headset, and in the
Right.
headset the voices would come like from all over. So they did that really really
Oh, that's
well.
cool.
Yeah. Um
Nice. Yeah. Is it like an action RPG ish?
so
Like,
it's
what
not
would
an
you relate it
RPG,
to?
it's a third person action adventure game.
Nice.
So it's
Okay.
like your yeah, your
That's my wheelhouse. Yeah.
mhm. And they did a
That's
fantastic
cool.
job with it. And there was this one part which I don't think is too spoilery, but
Mm.
if you want to skip forward a couple minutes, go ahead. Um, there's this one part that was especially gripping to me. Is she was in this darkness, and in the fog, there were these giant creatures moving, and they did it so well because it's kind of a cheesy
Frustrating.
idea, but oh my god, they did it so
Okay.
well. And it
That's
was
cool.
yeah, and she had to navigate it and stay out of their visual. Yeah, you
Right
didn't
on.
want them to see you, so you were moving
Right.
through the fog as
You
well.
got to send me a link for the first one.
I will.
I'm
I'll
gonna try
definitely
and
will.
see if I can find it. Yeah, because that sounds
Hmm.
cool. I'm a sucker for Norse mythology, and I like action games. So
Yeah.
right on.
So I was a bit
Cool.
of a plebeian this week, and I didn't do too much reading. It's been a kind of a
Mm.
busy one, but I know you've got some exciting
Mhm.
books to talk about. So.
But yeah, I've got one here that struck me that was pretty
Hmm.
cool. So it's a Phantasm book. So this
Hmm.
year marks the 45th anniversary of the horror classic Phantasm, and the creators return to the iconic universe with a brand new book called Psychon
Mm.
Tales from the World of Phantasm. So, Psychon is said to explore multiple characters and stories from within the Phantasm universe. So, if anyone's out there listening and maybe relatively newish into horror and you don't know Phantasm, it's a classic '80s franchise. There's a bunch of them. Some of them are like out there weird, but the concepts in them are fantastic. So I would definitely recommend definitely checking out at least the first one. And if you like that, dive into the franchise. They go up and down like all franchises, but
Mhm.
the concept behind that universe is really cool. So yeah, this is pretty interesting, and I love it when creators come back, like franchise, like cult classic franchise creators come back and do these little add-ons, in like a book form or a comic or something. I really dig that. But that's pretty much all I had for books this week.
Nice. Well, thank you.
I do have a cool one for collectibles
Okay.
too. So the do NECA officially revealed their upcoming Saw Ultimate Jigsaw Killer 7-inch scale action figure in red robe about a
Mm.
week ago. Yeah, so the figure features the Jigsaw Killer in an exclusive red robe. It includes a pig head mask, portrait, two unmasked portraits, a Billy puppet on a tricycle, swap out hands, a knife, a snapping jaw trap, and a tape recorder. Now, the unfortunate thing about this is that it is a Target exclusive, and they made mention that you will have to go to brick and mortar
Oh,
stores. So, yeah,
no.
makes it a little bit difficult, especially here in Canada. We don't have any Targets.
Oh,
So,
no.
yeah, so if you're outside of the US, you might be looking at eBay at extended prices for this bad boy.
Oh, no. That
But
sucks.
I did take a look at it. For any Saw fans, this looks like a killer fig. But that wraps me up for collectibles.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And bummer news about the staking in the US, but sounds like it's going to
Yeah,
be a cool figure. All right.
yeah,
So,
for sure.
for our recap this week, you watched Infested, right?
I did. It was actually the only. It's been a crazy week for me. I know it has for you too, and even the rest of our crew. That's why it's just the Ken and Gigi show today.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a bit of a crazy week all around, but I did watch Infested, and I know
Me
you
too.
did too.
I
So
did.
yeah, yeah. So you want to dive into this bad boy?
Sure. Okay. So, earlier in our podcast, we mentioned that The Evil Dead was getting some love,
New love.
and yeah, and the director Sebastian, he's going to be picking up the Evil Dead movies. Well, he directed Infested. It's kind of a long-winded way to say that, but just roll with it. Um,
No, and it's important too because this Infested movie was the reason why Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi picked Sebastian Vanek to direct the new Evil Dead.
that's
Like
so
they saw
cool.
this movie at like a film festival and they were like, "We need this guy,"
Hmm.
right? And they offered him the reins of the franchise. Which now I get it. Like after
Hmm.
watching the movie, I was like, "I get it."
Oh yeah, and it's so funny because when I first saw in the trailer for it, I was really excited, and I just got this really cool vibe. And then I also saw the trailer for Sting, and I was like, wait, are
Right.
there two Spider movies coming out this year?
Right. Well, and it's weird too, right?
Hmm.
Because both Infested has two names. It's a
Hmm.
French movie. Like I watched it in French with English
Me
subs.
too. Hmm.
Um, yeah, and but like in France, it's called Vermin,
Right.
right? So when you look at posters for Infested, it's like two different posters will pop up, one saying Vermin and one saying Infested. Now I saw that Sting as well, and I thought maybe it was like a Portuguese
Right. I
version
was
or
like, what's
something.
happening with this?
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
wasn't too sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, but where Sting was campy, Infested is serious. And I love how he developed the story. Sometimes when they're trying to build up characters in a movie to make you care about them, it can feel
Yeah.
really bogged down. And like
Yeah, not
what
only that, but like for me, it has the opposite effect. The
yeah.
more you try and make me care about a character, the less I care about them, like at
Yeah.
all,
Like
right?
if it doesn't feel
Yeah, but
organic, I tune
he
out.
sidestepped that.
Mhm.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
But he did. He sidestepped it. That's the perfect, like, he
Yeah,
built it up so well. And I think
right.
the way he revealed their story was so effective because you didn't get it. There wasn't a
Perfect.
lot of front loading, in the beginning of the
Right.
movie where he's just like, hammering down points and stuff. He actually took his
Yeah.
time in the middle
Hmm.
of these major action sequences to
I
develop
fill
their
you in on what you need.
relationships. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, how is this so smooth? This is like butter.
Right.
I
Yeah,
love
because
that.
I could tell you a lot about these people's lives,
Mhm.
but I never once got bored in the movie. Like it never like I was normally when people are trying to like spoon feed me backstory, I'm
Mhm.
rolling my eyes like give me a break. I'm not this is not why I'm watching this movie. I don't
Right.
care about these people. But like in this, they did it so like just like what you said, they did it
Mhm.
so perfectly and seamlessly that you didn't even know that you were gaining an attachment to these people.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, like this should be like a lesson to
Mhm.
filmmakers because it's something that's gotten wrong so many times, like on how to properly do it. And I don't even know that I could explain it. I could watch this movie 100 times. It was just like the way that the
Mhm.
character dynamics were
Mhm.
introduced was perfection.
Yeah.
Perfection because it's not too often I could say this. I liked everyone in this movie.
I did
Like all
too.
the side characters, like all the little like people in the apartment and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
loved
like
it. Should we maybe do a quick like very quick outline for anyone who doesn't know what this movie's about, just
yeah,
what this
yeah.
movie's about?
Yeah, please do. Please.
Cool.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's basically like a rundown um more than an apartment building. It's more like a complex community.
Mhm.
Um, right? Like
Yeah.
so, and I guess like these do exist in France, right? Where they're like mega complexes, but they're almost like low rent housing.
Mhm.
But they're so vast, like the structures are so vast that it's almost like a city block, I guess,
Yeah.
right? But it's all in like one massive kind of dwelling. Um, and I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but let's just say that there's a
I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe we should just say
I
like,
think
"Hey,
throughout this
spoiler."
conversation, some spoilers are going to
Yeah,
be
let's
coming
just
out.
disclaimer
Yeah.
spoilers for the movie. We're going to dive into it. So,
Yeah, I don't know
okay.
how we're gonna have this conversation without doing that,
Mhm.
but essentially a dangerous spider is introduced, and we'll talk about that.
Mhm.
And introduced to the building, and just starts breeding like crazy, and the city or the government, I guess, catches wind of it pretty quick
Mhm.
and locks it down. And we'll talk more about that. But they lock down the building, so basically all the residents are now trapped inside this like super poisonous spider infestation.
Mhm.
Which, if spiders are a trigger for anyone out there, I don't know that this is the best movie for you, or I'm gonna tell you it's the best movie for you if you like getting scared.
Mhm.
Like I'm Canadian, so we don't really have poisonous spiders. We got like one. You know what
Oh,
I
we're
mean? So
lucky.
like growing up, spiders were never really like a fear for me. I grew up playing with spiders, so I don't have that inherent fear. I did watch Arachnophobia when I was a kid, which kind of gave me a little bit of arachnophobia, which I think anyone who watched that movie as a kid,
Yeah.
that's kind of what it was designed to do. Almost like, how any of us as kids who watched the original Jaws always kind of hear that music when we're in the ocean.
Mhm.
But anywho, yeah, so these people get locked down in this building during the infestation, and they got to try and fight their way out and stay alive. And that's pretty much the premise. So, yeah, now we could just kind of jump into the beginning, which I'd like to say how cool was that first scene? I think I might have
Yes.
missed it because I put the like I can understand a bit of French, so I was
Mhm.
like I don't need the subtitles, and then they talk so fast, I'm like I'm gonna need the subtitles. So I might have missed it, but I'm assuming it was Afghanistan where they found the spider at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I'm not sure where, but
Do
yeah,
you
it's
know?
somewhere in that area.
Somewhere in the Middle East, though,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And
But
it
that opening scene was dynamite.
right. Well, and it set it up too about the danger of it because
Right.
one of their these guys are in the desert and they're looking for this spider, and one of the guys gets bitten and another one freaks out and kills him.
Yeah,
So
like
already
he
you're
comes at
like,
him with the axe,
"Ooh,
right?
this is not
What the
good.
hell?
What is going on with
It
these
was just a
spiders?"
spider.
Yeah, like
Right?
I
So, and it's funny too because at that time I was thinking maybe there's no anti-venom and
mm-hmm.
maybe it's so painful that, out there in the
Putting up
desert, these
yeah.
guys, they know if you get bit by the spider, the most humane thing to do is just kill the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
We find out later that there's more to it,
Right.
right? And even the way that the spider got him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like like that was crazy.
Well,
It was
Vanek
like a
said
dart in the mouth. Yeah.
he based the
Yeah.
spider off the huntsman spider, which is what they ended up
Right.
using in the movie because they used like 200 real spiders.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
so
Right.
he based it off the huntsman, which is like it jumps at you like that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Huh,
which is kind of cool.
that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
For
I
sure.
also
Yeah. And
liked
they go for the eyes, right? Like the actual spider,
yeah.
like that's a
Oh.
defense. Like if a large predator's coming
Mhm.
at them, they jump for the eyes.
Mhm. I don't know, but it
Yeah.
kind of makes sense. It goes for something.
Right. Yeah. 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 For sure. Well, that's like generally on any big mammal, that's going to be the most
Mhm.
sensitive area, right? Is the
Yeah.
eyes, and it'll also freak you out.
Exactly.
Um. Yeah. Yeah. So really cool opening scene. And that's really where I picked up on the cinematography. I was like, in my head, I was like, there's no way the cinematography is going to be this good throughout the whole movie, right?
But it
But it
was.
totally was.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like, the cinematography in this was as genius as the directing.
Mhm.
Like it was almost like kind of perfection. So we go from there, and so they catch the spider, and then there's the guy, the main character in the movie,
Mhm.
um, who just it's like I don't know if it's like an obsession, like, and you could tell because they kind of bleed it out a little bit throughout the story that it was kind of like his dream as a kid to
Mhm.
own like a little animal museum or an insect museum, him and
Mhm.
his buddy, right? But he collects these exotic animals, and he doesn't, you could tell like he doesn't have a lot of money. He kind of lives in this rundown place,
Mhm.
but he takes really good care of these animals. He's got a lot of love for them, right?
Mhm.
So for him getting this new spider was like a big deal, right? Like
Yeah.
he was so happy to bring it home. And that dude, I really liked, man.
I
Like
did
it's not
too.
too often. Usually humans in movies like this are just cannon fodder, right? Like
Right,
I'm
yeah.
just waiting for everyone to kind of get killed off. But like I like this dude right away. Like
Yeah,
and throughout the whole movie, he was a little bit
there's
whiny, but like
there was a lot of heart
humans, right?
there. Yeah, well, and
There
the
was a lot of heart.
complex
Like
um sorry, the complex relationships between everybody that
right,
felt
yeah,
super organic. And
right,
that really blew me away. And I get what you mean by the main Caleb. Um
yes, Caleb, yeah.
he was so sweet.
And
Um
it, believable though. And he was
yes.
hard like when he needed to be, and like, but you could tell like he's damaged. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But like all of these things, and I could almost pick like almost any character out of this and
Mhm.
tell you what I liked about them and this and that.
Mhm.
But I think that's like really the best thing I could say about this movie is that doesn't happen to me with most movies.
Mhm.
99% of movies, I don't really care, right?
Right.
Like I kind of cared about everyone in this. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
Well,
they were done very organically and very cool. And or we were talking about
one of
Caleb.
mhm.
Uh, yeah, no, he was fantastic. I don't know how Sebastian got these performances out of these actors who I don't know. I like. Was there anyone that you recognized in this
No,
movie?
nobody. It was all brand new
None,
faces to
right?
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, and I watch
But
a
they
lot
were
of
all
horror.
so good. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And especially
So,
like so we got a horror movie and
mhm,
we got a horror movie about spiders and somehow like the people, were like the show stealers almost. You
mhm,
would think that the spiders would be, right?
mhm,
But the people really kind of nailed this for me. So yeah, that opening scene was one of my favorites, right?
mhm,
But when he brought that spider home, right? And for him, he's just super excited, and he takes out a little container. He makes a little nest in a shoebox until he could get an aquarium set up, and he puts it away. And when he walks out of the room, the reaction from every other animal, and this guy's got like a
mhm.
wall of different types
Creepy
of exotic
crawlies.
insects and stuff, creepy crawlies, yeah. The way that they did that cinematography and direction when like close up on the other animals as the spiders moving around like they could sense danger in the room. Do you get
Mhm.
what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was like they were
Like
responding
I,
to it. Or like danger, danger.
they were, yeah, yeah, exactly, just like they could sense it in the air.
Mhm.
I thought that that was like solid gold, that little scene that and it didn't take up a lot of
Mhm.
time, right? But I just thought it was done so, like I was watching it with my mouth open
Yeah.
because of how like well done it was.
Well, and speaking of animals, the movie, if you are going to have a pet die, that is the way to do it. And that is like a
Right,
hot button topic with me. I really hate it when they use animals as like props. Where
right,
it's like the only reason that they're putting the dog in, they're gonna kill it.
right,
Like in The Conjuring, which I love The Conjuring, but it's like, why did you have to bring the family dog in for like 2 seconds?
right.
Anyways,
Uh,
Infested, holy crap, did it right. The dog was
yeah,
critical to the story, critical
yeah.
to,
And he,
his
he he
role
was
is
like a character
important.
in the
He
story.
was. He
Yeah,
had
yeah,
like his own arc and,
right.
sadness. But yeah, it was so well done. And then I was reading an interview that Sebastian, how do you say his last name? Is it Vanek or is it
That's how I'm
Vanacek?
saying it. I don't know if
Okay.
you're probably right.
I have
Yeah,
no
I
idea.
keep saying Vanek. Yeah,
Okay, but
yeah.
one of the things he said is that if you watch it, you and think about it, or I'm paraphrasing here, but basically he said that the spiders never uh, go on the offensive. They're always responding to an intrusion
Right,
or being attacked. And I was
right.
like, oh my God, they
Yeah,
were.
that's I never thought of that. Yeah, yeah,
Even
but you're
like that
100%
one
right.
lady that's like taking care of the building who I got attached to
Mhm.
her for some reason. But yeah,
Right.
she went in with
And
the
she's like
pest.
the least likable person
I
in the
know.
movie, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, she went
Uh,
in with the pesticide spray before,
right.
and they
Yeah.
hadn't attacked her until she sprayed them. And I was
Right.
like, oh, holy
No, you're
crap, you're
right.
right.
I never thought of it
Hmm.
at all until you just said that now, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And that's true. And that's true almost right up in until the end, right?
Right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
which the end was just like explosive.
Yeah. Yeah, big time.
And that was
Now
such
there
a
is
payoff.
there is a part in the end here where it was my only critique. And I
Hmm.
get why they did it, and everything else was done so right. But the only problem that I have when we talk about like being overly verbose and
Hmm.
and how it weighs things down is that there is this emotional breakdown scene, and it's
Hmm.
warranted, right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, not to say that it's not warranted. It's just I felt that moment. The moment I'm talking about when they're crying and screaming. Like
Oh,
after.
yeah.
Yeah.
That did go on for a
Okay.
bit.
So they
Hmm.
it and here's the thing is that it lost um it lost a lot of its value, I think,
Mm-hmm.
in being so drawn out,
Mm-hmm.
being so lengthy. If
Yeah.
it was shorter, I think, if they
Mm-hmm.
had, and far be it from me, right? Because I think that this director is a genius.
Mm-hmm.
So, who the hell am I to critique? But if that scene was cut almost to the point of you might think it was too short, but followed by silence and darkness, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it would have weighed heavier on me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where you almost have to sit with it for a second, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But the way that they dragged it out, and for as long as they dragged it out, it was like the only time in this movie where I kind of like, sat back and kind of like rolled my eyes, like, are we done yet? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Right? And it pulled me out of it. And it pulled me out of it emotionally, too, I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
because it was too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you would have like nailed that like somber moment, like that somber cries of desperation for a second, and then just cut and left me with silence for a couple of seconds, I think the weight of that moment would have sit heavier on my psyche
Mm-hmm.
rather than me just being like, get over it already. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which is super yeah,
Yeah.
awful
You're
to
talking
say,
about
but
like when she
like
was
it just
screaming to go back in.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yes.
the
Yeah, yeah,
exact same thing. I was like, all right,
yeah.
we get it. You're upset. Move on.
Right. And
Um.
then even like in that same time frame afterwards when
Mm-hmm.
they're all kind of breaking down and crying, and I get it. It's a heavy scene, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, the the ex best friend and the brother. There's some wild dynamics in this. Like if
Yeah.
we weave the thread of how these people are all connected, but it's cool and you get it. By the end, you get it, and you're not spoon fed anything. You're not force fed anything. You just get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's played out so well. But when they have that, like everyone's breaking down at the end and everyone's crying, that went on way too long. For anyone listening, we're talking about two small scenes, so it's not like this was half the movie. So
No.
I'm complaining about nothing when there was so much good, right? I
Yeah.
just feel like it's like the couple of things that stop the movie from almost being the perfect movie. You know what I
Right?
mean? Like from a directorial point of
Mm-hmm.
view, like it is almost perfect, which is crazy to say. This is like an independent film festival movie that was
Mm-hmm.
picked up by Shudder, right? Another shout out to Shudder, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't.
but yeah, that dog scene was just to kind of throw back to
Uh-huh.
the one that you brought up. I too I hate it when, especially when dogs are killed in movies.
I do too.
But the value to this was we actually learned something interesting about
Mm-hmm.
it, and that's that the spiders can breed, or like the babies even like after you've killed it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that dog, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because I only saw it the one time, but he ate a dead spider that was squished on the floor. And
Right.
then the next time you see him, the baby spiders have basically burst out of him like a xenomorph,
What I kind of
right?
assumed
I
is
got that
that, yeah,
right,
yeah,
right?
no, you did. What I kind of assumed, just based on like the bathroom scene, is that
Mm,
they reproduce fairly quickly and they carry their babies on them. So what I kind of
right.
thought when I watched it is that he might have eaten the dead parent spider, but like he ate the babies.
All the right, yeah, exactly, yeah, and you're right because
Uh-huh.
when they stomped that one in the bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it exploded into 1,000 smaller ones
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
almost, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, but that was just the babies that were clinging to the
Mm-hmm.
mother, yeah,
So
and almost make it look like a bigger spider.
yeah, and that's also one of the reasons that I appreciated how it developed in the story is they had
Mm,
like duct taped the vents off and the doors and stuff like that. So like
right.
they were, you know, I'm using quotation marks from with my fingers here. They were safe in their
Right.
apartment, and but
Mm,
then they brought the dog in,
right.
and the dog was unfortunately infested. Dun dun dun.
He's like a character, right? Yeah,
Oh yeah, and he really
yeah,
was. That poor
right.
guy.
And dun,
I
dun,
just loved
dun.
him.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah.
But
No, he was fantastic.
mhm.
I love that it wasn't even their dog; it was their buddy's dog,
Mhm.
right? But like they just automatically, it wasn't even like a question. It's like, okay, well, the dog's coming with us, right?
Yeah.
After the buddy, yeah, gets taken down. So here's an important part that we haven't actually talked about. I alluded to it, and I just kind of assumed that we get there.
Mhm.
Is that the first guy in the building to die from the spider bite? They call the police,
Mhm.
and the police don't know what the hell happened. He's got boils on his skin, right? Like,
Yeah.
and they assume that, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is just what I got from it. The the authorities assume that there's some kind of virus in the building, so they
Mhm.
lock down the area, and they treat it like almost like a chemical warfare or some type of crazy virus. And I get
Yeah.
almost this kind of like lockdown COVID slash
Uh-huh.
like outbreak kind of vibes,
Yeah.
or what was the Spanish one in the building, zombie one?
Oh, Wreck?
There
No,
was a, which one?
it wasn't Wreck. Was it?
No, but the posters look very similar.
Yeah, they did.
And the American one, Dexter's sister played the main
Yes. Yep.
character.
Oh my God, that's
Hmm.
gonna drive me
Anyways,
crazy. All right.
yeah, yeah. And we're gonna be slapping ourselves later. But anyways, quarantine. What the hell?
Yes.
Quarantine. It gave me
Oh, okay.
quarantine kind of vibes, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's why the building gets locked down. So by the time anyone in this movie knows that there's even a problem, the authorities are already locking down the
Mhm.
building and won't let anyone out. And then they realize that it's this poisonous spider infestation, but no one can get out. And
Mhm.
the government won't really communicate with the people inside. Meanwhile, the spiders keep breeding and breeding and breeding, and the situation's getting worse. But the government doesn't really know what's going on and just thinks it's safer to lock it down.
Right.
And also, that cop was really cool. I liked his character too because he was kind of like on the fence, right? He was trying to
Mhm.
help them and he was a good guy, but he was also the antagonist and he was the guy not letting them out,
Right.
right? But like he was trying to help them at the same time. And like I felt that pain because he's got a job to do, right? And he's
Right.
got to think of the greater good. But to the characters who you're following,
Mhm.
from their
He's an
perspective,
antagonist.
he's
Yeah.
literally killing them.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But like you never feel like he's a bad guy. You like
Mhm.
he's a good guy trying to do the right thing. He just doesn't know what the right thing is.
Right.
Yeah, this movie's deep, man.
It
Yeah,
is.
there's
It
there's
is.
some collective coolness. Yeah.
And it's
Um.
so kind. It
mm,
was like this refreshing. I went in not knowing how cool it was gonna be.
yeah.
I was like, "Oh, it's a creature feature. I
Yeah.
love creature
Same.
features," and
Right.
I was just like blown away.
Yeah. Blown away, man.
Mhm.
Yeah. And almost like right from the beginning.
Mhm.
And I had said it earlier, but I was like, I saw that when the opening scene hooked me, and I was like, because a lot of times that happens, you get this really good opening scene, and then the movie itself never lives up to it.
Mhm.
Um, and if I didn't say it out loud, I definitely said in my head, I said that, there's no way the movie's going to be this quality, right? They
Yeah.
put a lot of money into the opening, probably for a trailer or whatever. There's no way that the movie's going to be this quality all the way through, and it 100% was.
Yeah, it was. And I
Mm.
just can't wait to see what he does with the Evil Dead
Oh
because
yeah, if he could give this treatment on an indie budget,
oh my
you know what I mean,
gosh.
to Evil Dead, oh, forget about it. It's yeah. I don't want to get my hopes up, you know what I
I
mean? But
know,
like
I know.
I'm excited and also just intellectually curious on what
Mhm.
this guy's gonna do. Because there was choices in this movie
Mhm.
that I was just like, yep, brilliant, right? Brilliant.
Yes.
Just like this, the way that this scene was filmed or that scene was, you know, the follow through on another scene. I'm like, this is all brilliant.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, like
yeah,
the
very
one
cool.
okay, so there's this one part which, major spoiler, we've been spoilery the whole time. But when the
Yeah.
sister character, I can't remember
Hmm.
um uh her name in it, but
Her name? Yeah,
she
I'm not good with names.
when they were in the hallway and they had to turn the light and it has one of those timers on it so that the building doesn't
Right,
like waste
right.
energy.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That
this
which is super common everywhere in Europe.
yes. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
even like in apartment building
yeah. Hmm.
stairways and stuff, if you walk in your building and there's no elevator or whatever, you have to turn a dial to turn on the light, and then you have X amount of time before that light shuts off.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. And
Yeah.
and so one of the things that they establish in the movie is that these spiders, they're hunter spiders, so they like to be in the darkness. So when the lights come on, they kind of freeze or they scatter. They don't want to be in
Right.
the light. So they're in this hallway that has been completely encased in spider webs, and they're making
Or
it like a
infested.
burrow. And they're turning on this light. They only have a minute to get down this hallway, and they're like, there's no way we can do this in that amount of time. And she volunteers because she's the most agile to stay
Right.
back and hold the switch for them, and then she will dart
Right.
down the hall. And the whole
Uh.
time I'm sitting there, I'm like, she's gonna die. Well, goodbye, nice lady. And
Right.
it was like a misdirection, but in a nice way. Like, I don't know, like,
Right.
he kept
Yeah.
surprising me, but not
Yeah.
like, I don't know how to put it. Sometimes a movie will go like with a twist, and it's like, where did that even come
Right.
from? This is stupid. His twists
Yeah.
felt like they made the
No,
most
they made
sense.
sense.
And it was just like,
Yeah, exactly.
oh my
They
gosh,
were realistic, and
yes. And it was
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
I'm so invested in this movie.
right. And I think that's the best compliment I could give this movie
Hmm.
for as far out as the concept is.
Hmm.
Um, everything was very believable as far as the reactions and
Hmm.
interactions between the cast, right? Like
Yeah.
there was never a moment where it felt like you were watching actors
Hmm.
or you know what I mean? Like it just everything felt very authentic to
Hmm.
whatever the situation was. And the things that happen are like n- I don't want to say so unexpected but realistic.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
nothing, just like what you're saying, nothing out of left field. Like, oh, come on, you know what I mean? Like, what the
Yeah.
hell was that? It was all just like it's not the way you thought it was gonna go, but it's definitely a plausible way it could have gone,
Yeah.
and it does throw you for a bit of a loop because it wasn't the setup, right? The
Hmm.
setup is for a certain direction, and usually if they're gonna, not or throw a twist into whatever the setup is, you're right. It's usually something campy and far out there,
Hmm.
and this is just within the ballpark.
It is. Yeah.
I
It's
did
like
really like that scene. Yeah,
really thoughtful, is what I could say about that
yeah,
movie. It's like everything was so well crafted, and
yes,
and I
yeah,
loved it. And I'm like, give me more of this. Whatever 2024
yeah,
Magic Sparkle Dust is putting into the horror universe, like, bring more.
yes, right, yeah, because we're in this like wicked time,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of it is just this like bogged down, um, angst towards what we've been given over and over from
Hmm.
studio horror, right?
Hmm.
I know we talk about this a lot, but like I think I think the world has been tired of studio horror for a
Yeah.
while, and it's getting worse and worse. And
Hmm.
now there's these creative people that are being given chances, and places like Shudder that are like, no, we're gonna go for this, right?
Hmm.
Like Shudder, a North American streaming service, picked up this indie French horror movie.
Hmm.
That is cool and it's genius,
It
right?
is.
Like
It's
the
so
movie
good.
itself is fantastic, but like there's how many of these movies have we never seen? How many beautiful, amazing like film festival movies have we never seen because no one picks them up? So
Exactly.
big high
Yeah.
five to Shudder. Yeah,
Heck yeah.
because yeah, I want more of this. Just like we were saying with Late Night with the Devil, right? Give me
Hmm.
more of that. If movies like this is the rest of my life of horror, I'm down. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I could
Yeah.
take less studio horror and way more of these because they are blowing my mind and I'm loving them. And this director, I never heard of him before the announcement of the new Evil Dead.
Hmm.
And it really, I don't know about you, but it was my big interest to see this movie Infested. I get it. The guy's a genius.
Hmm.
I don't know. I've never heard of him. I want to see what else he's made because
Yeah.
you don't just walk out of film school and make Infested. Like
Hmm.
this guy's got some skill, and I really wanna dive into his catalog.
Me too.
You want to dive into the end of this movie, the Great Escape, if you will?
Yeah. Um, so basically, towards the end of the movie, they have fled the building and they're in the parking garage, which
Hmm.
is the there's a really cool interaction with the police where it's not positive. Um, but the
No, yeah,
spiders, it is they keep evolving and growing. And so there's
yeah,
more of them and they're bigger. And it's
bigger.
like he he took it and
It's
just went like crazy with the spiders. And I
right.
thought,
So this is where the Spider movie turns into like a monster movie, right?
yeah.
Is in the underground.
Bec-
Yeah. And it makes sense, right? Like spiders like dark and cold,
mhm.
right? So like, you know, yes, the underground. And I was thinking in my head too. I'm like, as they're making their way like through all these obstacles to get to the underground, I'm like,
Mhm.
isn't that where like most of these spiders are gonna congregate,
Mhm.
right? And yep, yes, they did.
Yes.
Um, and that scene was like a crazy monster movie action scene with like cops shooting at them and giant
Yeah.
spiders eating people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
I think
flying
like
left and
because
right.
it did. Yeah, because it kind of turned into like an action sci-fi horror
Mhm.
for a moment, and it was all fun. Like it was all good. It was all really well done.
It was a perfect grand
And
finale. You know what I mean?
right,
Like,
but like yeah, almost fruitless though
mhm.
too, right?
Mhm.
Because you know uh, they uh, they ended up having to backtrack.
Mhm. Well, that was one of the things too. I loved how at the very end, Caleb's character had this like moment in the woods,
Mm,
and I
right.
appreciate that so
Oh,
much.
like at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because there was so much darkness, and it's definitely not like a happy ending,
Right.
but
No,
but him
like
sitting in that.
some of our core people survive, but
Mhm.
like they're not. Like no one's in a good place.
Yeah,
No.
they need some therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he has
Yeah.
this moment in the woods, and I thought that was so perfect.
Yeah.
And
And you know what? It absolutely was perfect because
mhm,
this is a guy who we learn like grew up loving like insect like loving insects, right? Like a
mhm,
deep passion for the creepy crawlers. And
mhm,
you would think an experience like this, losing a bunch of his friends, losing his home, um, and it's kind of his fault, right? Like if
mhm.
he didn't do anything intentionally, but
Right.
the result of this movie. Well, I would think whoever captured the spiders and brought them to a little bodega in the ghettos of France to sell to street kids is probably his fault.
Right. Yeah.
But
Definitely.
in this scenario, it's Caleb's fault. But so he loses his friends, loses family, loses his home, and sitting in the woods, and that when he picks up that little spider, right, and it's
Mhm.
crawling on his hands, and you could see that love is still there,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. And I
Yeah,
appreciated that so much because
yeah, me too.
it there was this thread of integrity through the whole movie, and it was still
Right?
there, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of nice."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, it was like it wasn't a happy ending, like you said,
mm,
but it was a nice way to end it, right?
mhm.
Yeah,
And I
very
just
cool.
yeah, I'm excited to see what else he does. I'm glad that I watched this. I'll probably watch it again. Like I think it's definitely worth, checking out.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
it's
If only just so I don't know if you're like this, but like for me, the first time I watch something, especially if it's really good, and there's a lot of like anchors and cool things
mhm,
about it, on a second or third watch, like especially if the cinematography and directing is really good,
mhm.
I'll pick up on little things that I missed because the first time you see something, you're just absorbing, trying to
Yeah.
absorb everything at once. But on a second or third watch, you can pick up on little things you might not have noticed
Mhm.
at first. I think there's going to be a lot of moments like that in this
Yeah.
because it was just too clever not to have not to have little like things that you wouldn't pick up on right away, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think definitely just to watch to see how we did the cinematography over again, because like
Mhm.
I thought it was so beautifully shot.
Oh,
Um,
for sure. I would say some of the best like cinematography
hmm
in any type of budget. You know what I mean? Like
right.
I would match the cinematography in this movie to like big Hollywood budget movies
Mhm.
and be like, I think this is a contender because it was gorgeously shot,
Yeah.
gorgeously directed. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I agree. Do you have a
Yeah.
score for this one?
So I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Nice. Good score.
What about you?
I came out I came out at a 7.5 out of 10, which for me is really, really good. Again, my
Nice.
score my scoreboard is like crazy high, and not
hmm
because I'm judgmental, just because like to me a 5 is good, right?
hmm
Like if you're a good movie, just not overly fantastic. Like I could praise fives all day long, right? So
hmm
7.5 for me is a huge score.
Yeah.
Um, and I think after talking about today, I might bump up to an 8 because there is just so much good,
hmm
right? I probably would if those couple of scenes, those like overly dramatic scenes, were a little bit shorter. I know I would have been an 8 out of the gate.
hmm
But like it's a small thing to nitpick when everything else was just so good.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear what you're saying
Anyways,
for
yeah,
sure.
but like yeah, 7.5 and an 8.5, those are pretty high scores. So
Definitely.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
I think it well deserves it. I'm glad I watched this one,
Me too. And we
and
hope.
I pushed it up on the list because I saw that you were gonna watch it. I was like, I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to move that up on the list so we could talk about it.
I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
yeah,
And we hope that the listeners enjoyed hearing about it as well, and that
mm,
if you hadn't watched it, that you do decide to watch it after we've talked about it.
for sure. And I hope that we didn't spoil too much. And also, if if you're listening to this and you have watched it and you've got any thoughts, throw them down in the comments, right?
Yeah, please do.
Like yeah, I love seeing comments. Just whether you agree or disagree. If you thought the
Mhm.
movie was trash, tell us why, right? If you loved it or loved a scene that we didn't talk about or know something about the director or some of the actors, whatever, yeah. Or in any of these topics that we talk about, feel free to drop comments because we like seeing them.
Heck yeah, we do. All right, thanks, y'all.
Hmm.
Well, dear listeners, we hope you have a great night and stay spooky.